Welcome, guys, to session number 8 of the Carnivore Evolution podcast, the podcast dedicated to help you guys on your health and fitness journey. Today, we have a special guest. Susan has been a client of mine for the last couple of months, and she's going to come on board and I talk to her about her experience going through a carnivore diet. Before we talk about that, Susan, how are you today?
Good, thank you. Thanks for inviting me, Mark. How are you?
I'm very, very well. So before we talk about carnivore, give me some backstory on you. Like, how did you get yourself into all this? Like, what did you do in the past, like diets wise? And
In the past, I'm sort of not, I'm like most women. I'm not particularly heavy in standards. The maximum size I've ever been is like a 14. And I tend to vary between 12 and 14. I've done Weight Watchers in the past, lost a lot of weight and put it all back on. Tried Slimming World, never liked that. Most recently, a couple of years ago, I just did calorie counting myself with my fitness pal. Lost a couple of stone doing that, got back down to a size 10 and then just stopped counting calories and put it all back on again. And I hadn't really thought about it. I tried rejoining Slimming World, but it's not something that's ever really worked for me. I don't like their plan or anything. The food choices never really suited me, so I joined it briefly. I did it for about a couple of months, but I didn't really notice any success, so I just kind of gave up and started thinking about what I could do myself, really.
And how long were you doing this for?
Well, I've been doing diets on and off for my whole life, sort of 20 odd years, really. My first time I joined Weight Watchers was probably about 20 years ago. A group of friends, and we all wanted to lose weight, and we did. We all got like super skinny. We'd go into like Topshop, which is quite small sizes, and it'd be all sugar by the size 8 or the size 10 jeans. It lasted for a year or so, but because I went backpacking around Australia and Asia for a year and a half, so I was on the go constantly, so I didn't put on too much. But as soon as I got back to England and I was sedentary all the time, sat in an office job, it just piled back on again. And
when you did the diets, were you in a position where you were losing the weight and you were putting it back on? You could never get to that stage where you could keep it off all the time.
Never stable. I've always regained the weight and then ended up like however long later, how long it takes me to get back up to where I was, kind of, because it obviously takes a while. You don't notice it because you might be wearing leggings or something, because you're changing sizes, so you wear like elasticated clothes to accommodate, because some things are too small, some are too big, so you don't really notice it. And then one day you just look in the mirror and you're like, oh, how did I get here? And I need to do something about it. And it's always at that point, really you should have thought about it 6 months earlier, but it just suddenly, it seems to, one day you look in the mirror and just think, I'm not happy with myself anymore. I want to do something about it.
And talk me through it. What kind of diet were you on?
Basic calorie counting. That's what Weight Watchers, Slimming World were. And when I did it myself, it was purely calorie counting. So
what type of food was it?
Low fat stuff. I was counting the calories and everything I was eating lots of vegetables, looking for anything that said low fat or fat free, kind of things. I wasn't, I would eat takeaways or pizza or stuff like that occasionally, but I wasn't a massive, it wasn't like, I never had an issue with food personally. I'm just a normal person who just enjoyed eating and drinking, sometimes a little bit too much, and like most people, I'm prone to putting on a bit of excess weight when I don't take care of myself.
And when was the stage a couple of years later where you felt, okay, listen, I need to do something about this? So let's say the last 5 or 6 years, when I did like the COVID and stuff like that.
I did the calorie counting a couple of years ago, and lost a couple of stone and got to like a size 10. That would have been mid 2022. I got back down to a size 10, And then I just got in bad habits of eating. I then got into a relationship, so we were having lots of takeaways and sort of drinking a lot as well, which probably didn't help. But I used to be a runner and I used to do lots of exercise. But then I had a knee injury, so I used to struggle
Yeah.
doing. And then struggled doing exercise, and my knee injuries progressively got worse over the last few years. So been to see lots of medical professions to try and find what's wrong. I've tried every kind of treatment you could think of, alternative, mainstream. I've tried medications, alternative things, lotions, potions, supports. And finally, I found out I've got osteoarthritis, which is actually wear and tear of the joint. It's like a total degenerative kneecap. So it means for me, I can't just go for a walk outside because walking on concrete is too painful. If I want to go to the shops, for example, I have to use crutches. So it's not an option for me to, just go for a nice long walk or go for a run like a lot of people. So, so I realised I needed to do something in terms of the food.
When did you feel like when you needed a change from the diet culture? Like, how did you fall into, like, I think you were mentioning to me that you fell into like keto before you mentioned you fell
Yeah,
into.
right. Well, I'm what's known in the trade as a conspiracy theorist. I've been down the rabbit hole for about nearly 5 years now, which we can obviously touch on later. So I'm very aware of how we've been lied to about a lot of things, about the medical industry and all kinds of things. So I knew that seed oils were bad for us, but I hadn't really thought about. I knew processed food wasn't good. Everyone knows processed food's not good for you, but you still eat it anyway. And you know that Diet Coke's good for cleaning all the dirt. It can strip a 2p piece of all its dirt, so it's not good for your insides. But I'd never really thought about it. And then I kind of went down the food rabbit hole, and it was just one day something came up my Instagram feed, and it's actually a girl called Davinia Taylor. She was in Hollyoaks. I don't know if you have that in Ireland, but she was in Hollyoaks in the 1990s, and she'd previously been an alcoholic. She was got very overweight, and she'd done her own independent research and realised like how harmful processed foods were and how she wasn't getting the right support. And so after doing loads of research, she managed to get herself back to a really healthy weight, get herself nice and toned, get into exercise. Even though she'd already given up the booze, she was still obese. And she set up her own company selling supplements such as bovine collagen, electrolytes, protein powder made with shilajit and collagen. And she was promoting following a ketogenic diet. So I thought that's really interesting. So I started looking into that and realised that basically anything that says low fat on it is actually really bad for you. They've taken out everything that's good in the food and basically replaced it with sugar. Now, I've known for a few years that sugar causes cancer, and I always said, if I ever got a cancer diagnosis, and obviously the first thing I would do would be to cut out all sugar. But what I hadn't realised is how bad it is for you in every other aspect of life. And I just did loads of research, really looked into it, and sort of began to realise that food that was good for us 20 years ago has changed. So you look at a loaf of bread, like 20 years ago, it would be made with yeast, flour, and a couple of other ingredients. You look at it now, and it's got emulsifiers and all sorts of stuff. And it's got like 20 ingredients in. So I kind of learned that anything with more than 4 ingredients should be avoided. And if you've never heard of the ingredient or you couldn't store it in your kitchen cupboard, then you need to avoid it like the plague. And particularly anything that says low fat on it does not mean it's good for you. It just means they've replaced the goodness and put a load of chemicals in it.
Yeah, and this is something that I'm always talking about with people. Like, when you look around, so many people are struggling with their health, and everybody keeps on demonizing this being on a high fat diet or we're eating too much red meat. But when you look around, you go to shops, one thing you see in shops is everything is low fat milk, low fat cheese, everything is low fat. Then you look around and people are getting fatter.
Yeah,
People are, people are developing diabetes. people are like yourself are getting niggles. They're getting knee injuries. They're walking around with arthritis. There's so many problems. People's health is suffering big time.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
we all blame this on people not moving enough, not being in a low calorie diet. Red meat is mentioned on many occasions. Just you're not going to the gym as often as you should be. You're not prioritizing cardio. There's just so much rubbish out there. I'm sure you would have heard the same thing.
Yeah, I hadn't heard the thing about red meat actually, but then I was never really a red meat eater. When I was seeing my ex-boyfriend, we used to cook steaks occasionally because he really enjoyed it, but it was not something I cooked for myself. If I cooked something, I'd always have chicken or bacon, or if I was feeling lazy, I used to have like lemon and coriander couscous for my lunch most days because it took like 2 minutes to prepare. So, but yeah, I just assumed that people who were overweight was down to bad diet and not exercising and everything, and not not looking at it. So then we did the ketogenic diet for about a month or so, and whilst I was doing that, the same person, Davinia Taylor, I stumbled on her Insta. She was actually in Spain, and she was meeting up with Dr. Anthony Chaffee, and they were discussing the carnivore diet. I thought, oh, that's interesting. I'll have a look into that. So I then started looking into Dr. Anthony Chaffee, Dr. Sean Baker, Dr. Ken Berry, and lots of other. I'm always really keen to learn, especially with what I know about how much has been hidden from us. And a lot of what they said made sense. They said that carnivore is basically a proper human diet. This is the way our ancestors would have eaten before we had all these factories processing lots of food. I mean, myself, I used to work for a company that made products like glucose and dextrose that went into your ice cream, went into your chocolate bars, went into your sweets, your jam, etc. I learnt that vegetables contain oxalates, and some, they can cause issues for some people. Things like most of the fruit we have nowadays, it's neither natural nor native to the UK. For example, bananas, they never used to be this sweet, and they're not something that's native to the UK. So that's why they can cause problems for you. If you live in a really hot country that naturally grows bananas on trees, some of them now are modified, but you sort of tolerate. Your body is built to tolerate what grows around you, not putting lots of foreign things in. So I just started watching what they were saying, and I just watched dozens and dozens of testimonies saying how much it helped them, how they'd lost weight, they caused various ailments, got over depression. So I thought, well, this is worth a try to see if it helps my osteoarthritis, because although it's wear and tear, there is an element of inflammation. I thought, tried everything else. I'm still trying treatments. Let me give this a whirl and see if the carnivore can help.
And you've been doing this now for how long?
I started in November, just about a month before I signed up with yourself. So I was just under 10 stone. I weigh quite light, so my 10 stone is probably someone else's 12 or 13 stone. So I was about size 14. I was just kind of making it up along, not really knowing what to eat or what quantities. So, and again, Instagram algorithm struck once again, and you kept popping up on my news feed, and because you were promoting the carnivore diet, that really resonated, because I wasn't interested in. I'd never looked for a coach. I've never had a coach before. It wasn't something I'd actively looking for, but something really resonated with the pictures you were sharing of what people before and after photos, and the fact that you were talking about carnivore diet, because after doing all my research, although I'd only been doing it for a month, I could see the benefits, and I knew that these people were right, and I could see how good it was going to be. So I didn't want to even discuss with anyone the options of changing my diet and coming off it, because it was absolutely 100% all in. I'm going to try this. I need to try and heal my knee and see what other achievements I can get out of it.
And talk me through those benefits. What has changed?
Well, 3 months later, and I've now lost 1.5 stone. I'm a size 10. I used to have really bad IBS. I used to have upset stomachs at least twice a week. Never really knew what the cause was. Been to the doctors, and they just, given me like lots of medication to take. I had to stop taking the medication because A, it didn't really help, and B, I've realised that how a lot of medications aren't actually helpful for you. So my IBS cleared up, so I've no longer got the upset stomachs. I also used to suffer from depression. Again, I was on and off with the antidepressants because, again, I was aware how bad they are for you, but equally they help. So it was between a rock and a hard place. What do I do here? I don't want to take them because they're bad for me, but equally I don't want to feel like crap all the time. So my depression has gone. I've got my energy levels have gone. I always used to want afternoon naps. For example, I finish work at 1 o'clock on a Friday, and I currently work from home because of my knee injury. And literally 2 minutes past 1, and I'd be in bed for a couple of hours wanting a nap because I'm just generally tired. So I don't need my afternoon naps anymore. My energy levels are up. The IBS has gone. The depression has finally cleared. I recently found out about a month ago I'm being made redundant, which isn't the best news anyone wants to hear. But even despite that, I still feel really positive.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, and I think that's the most important thing, isn't it? When it comes to like external stuff that we can't control, the one thing that we can control and we will always be able to control is going to be us. So I know an awful lot of people at the moment are going through an awful lot of mental health issues. It could be work, it could be family related, but none of that is probably in your control. Whereas where you are right now, you're in a very, very good place because you're giving your body the nutrients and the fuel it needs to thrive on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely, it didn't clear up straight away. I'm not going to say it's some magic cure that overnight. It took a couple of months to kick in. There were times when I considered going back on my antidepressants because I just felt like crap for no particular reason. It wasn't due to external things. I just felt generally low, and as you do, because but now, after, I'd say it took a good 2 months, really for it to properly clear. But now it has, and I wouldn't, I feel great. I'm not running around super happy all the time, but I still get stressed about things. But generally, everything's manageable. I don't feel I've got the depression anymore. And another thing about Carnivore that's great is I always hated preparing meals and faffing around, like chopping vegetables and cooking sauces and everything. It suits me perfectly. Every meal is 1 pan, 1 plate. You don't have to have like loads of pots or buy loads of ingredients and be following complicated recipes and weighing things out. So it's perfect.
And what's the biggest lesson you've learned since going on the carnivore diet?
I think the fact that we've been lied to, because what I've come to realise is how much it's demonised, which I'd never heard of it prior to November last year. That was the first time I heard about it when I heard about Dr. Anthony Shafee. It wasn't something I'd ever heard of. Actually, I think someone mentioned it to me briefly months and months ago about my knee, and I was like, what? And I didn't just dismiss it because I didn't know what they were talking about. So, but then obviously didn't. But yeah, it's constantly demonised, which, from my perspective, made me even more interested because, in respect for a lot of things these days, and especially with social media, why can't we have an open discussion about things? Why just demonize these people and say, no, it's bad for you, end of story? Why can't we have an open discussion and say, well, actually, it's not good for you because X, Y, Z? And I just saw so many testimonies. These guys have podcasts every week. They have so many guests saying all the things they've healed, like, chronic conditions. People are healing diabetes, all kinds of ailments. People are losing weight, and you look at the comments when you watch their YouTube videos, and there's like hundreds and hundreds of people all saying how amazing it is. And the weight loss is great. And as someone said, the weight loss is brilliant, but you've got to consider the other health benefits as well. My knee isn't cured, but the pain is less than it was. I still need to get around, but whereas previously, if I went hobbling around to the shops, then I'd be in pain for 4 days afterwards. Now it still hurts, and I might be a bit sore afterwards. I might still be a bit sore the next day, but I can still get out the next day and do again. Oh, and something I haven't actually told you. I went to the opticians this afternoon because my glasses I've been struggling with my glasses for ages. I just can't see properly out of them. So they did a new sight test, and she's like, "Oh, do you think your prescription's changed?" I said, "Well, I don't know, but I've heard rumours that carnivore diet has improved people's vision. Not that I'm claiming it does." And she did my vision test, and my sight's actually improved.
Wow.
And the only thing I've changed is carnivore diet.
That's amazing, isn't it?
So I didn't expect that. When she asked me the question, I was like, well, I've heard rumours, but I don't know if it's true or not. Thinking, of course it won't change. And yeah, my eyesight's actually improved.
Yeah, and I remember speaking to you from day one, Susan. I was like, you could see that this woman was broken. There was an awful lot of stress there. You were carrying this big black cloud. I remember from day one, and I could see that you weren't healthy at all. I could just see it.
I was really because I just didn't know how to lose the weight because I didn't.
That's what I'm coming on to. Like when we had the conversation first, it was all based around, okay, I just need to lose the weight. It doesn't make a difference. I just need to lose the weight. And I was like, no, you don't. You just need to focus more on your health. Don't be focusing too much on the weight loss, because the weight loss will come when you start looking after yourself first. And I think a lot of people are struggling today because they're not doing that. They're just going straight into the weight loss. People are, like you mentioned, people who have diabetes, struggling with arthritis, they're struggling with a metabolic issue, they're obese or whatever it is, they're suffering with anything like that. They're skipping past the nutrition. They're like, you know what? I just need to go to the gym. I just need to hire a PT. I just need to go on another. I just need to go on another weight loss program.
Yeah.
And I'll get the results that I want. You did that.
Once you eat the right food, then it goes hand in hand. The ailments clear up, and if you need to lose the weight, then the weight loss will come. Obviously, that was a big being a female, and we are obsessed with looks in this society, and it was something I was quite obsessed with. But the health benefits are amazing. So I would say to anyone who has any health conditions, whether or not you want to lose weight, whether you're the perfect weight but have health conditions, then absolutely 100% carnivore is the way forward. There's no money at the end of the day. That's why it's demonized. If you think about the money that comes from, say Kellogg's eating cereals that are full of sugar and all the ingredients in that, it's a massive industry. You've got the company that I used to work for that makes the glucose that goes in it. You've got the sugar company, then you've got Kellogg's themselves making it, selling it for a profit. There's millions of pounds in that. Whereas if you just eat red meat and eggs, the only profit is for the farmers, and they don't make that much profit.
Yeah, no, and that's another good point. When it comes to the farmers, they're losing out big time because of the markets, and the quality of the meats that we're getting in the shops is nowhere near as good as what you were getting at farm.
No, absolutely. A lot of it's processed. They add sugar to it. If you look at some of the ingredients, sometimes they're adding like dextrose to it, which again we used to make where I used to work, so I can 100% say that is a sugar. They're adding all kinds of stuff to it, and not to mention the hormone ingredients in the feed for the cattle. Obviously it is difficult these days to determine what has gone into the meat that you're buying, but I would say to anyone, just buy the best quality that you can afford. Try to go to your butchers, just watch what you have. I mean, that's why personally I've stopped eating pork now, because I have to think, you look at what the pigs are fed, and they're fed really poor quality foods. They're kept in really poor conditions, so that reflects in what you're eating.
So if someone's listening to this right now, that's been in your situation, that has done every diet, has done Slimming World, Weight Watchers, everything, they don't realize they have a sugar addiction. They don't realize they have a food problem or a carb addiction, and they don't know what to do. What would your advice be to these people?
I would say you need to have a look at the carnivore diet and just investigate it. Just give it a try, maybe just give it a whirl for a week, just to start off with, just see how you feel. Because, the first few days aren't easy, sort of cutting out sugar. You will have cravings, but once you go down that, I don't have any sugar cravings. I don't crave things. I'm not hungry between meals. Whereas before I'd be snacking, or if I was in the shops, and like most people, I'd see the chocolate bars on offer and buy one of them. I got through Christmas doing it. I went for Sunday lunch at my dad's. I had the roast dinner. I had a couple of chocolates, and I didn't even enjoy the taste. They tasted different. I could taste the chemicals in them. It just weren't that enjoyable. And once you start looking at the ingredients and you learn about all the stuff that's in them, it's not that lovely chocolate anymore. I just think of it as processed stuff, and you don't crave it anymore. And a lot of people say, oh, carnivore's really expensive, just buying all this meat. But it's not that expensive, because you have to take into account what you're not buying. Like, you're not buying your fizzy pop, you're not buying your bread, you're not buying all your pasta, butters, your rice, your meat to go with it, your vegetables, and then you're not buying your desserts or your starters. And yes, meat's more expensive than a ready meal or a pizza, but you're buying all the extra stuff, and once you finish that pizza, then okay, you're full for like half an hour, and then half an hour later you're like, oh, I really need something sweet to finish off that. So then you'll have a bit of cake or a bit of chocolate, and then you'll have to polish it off with a bit more fizzy pop, and the money all adds up. And so I'm actually spending less money now on food than I was previously, because I'm not buying all the extra things.
And you feel the hardest thing to give up was the sugar?
Hard to say what was hard to give up. So I went in it. I think probably for the first week, maybe it was hard. I'd already gone from keto. See, I went from ketogenic to carnivore, so I'd already given up the sugar. But I think when I first started keto, it was hard for a few days. But I was determined to give it a go, and not sort of give in. So it's just about willpower. If you can get through the first few days, those cravings will go away. And after that, once you train your brain to start looking at the ingredients and think about and look at all the chemicals, you don't really want to eat it, because you start thinking, why do I want to put that? I don't want to put that in my body.
Exactly, yeah.
The same way I don't want to put, like, when you look at a list of medications that's got all these ingredients that I don't know what, and a list of side effects, like, that's like 3 pages long, I don't want to put that into my body unless I know exactly what it is. I don't want to do that with my food. I'm trying to heal myself here. I've got a chronic condition. I don't want to be putting chemicals into my body, and the chronic condition aside, I just really don't feel that it's natural or healthy to put that kind of things into me. I want to look after myself. I want to be healthy. I want to enjoy my life and not be, not constantly be like fed up. And, people will say, oh, I hear people say, oh, is it not boring? But what's boring is being depressed, overweight, and having IBS and no energy, and it's not boring, because once you change, you actually enjoy the taste of the red meat. So I was never a red meat eater, previously, but you enjoy it, and that's what your body craves. Your body knows what it wants. It knows what's good for it.
100%. Like I'm the very, very same. Like I'm eating pretty much the same food every day, and every day it gets better.
Yeah, I still enjoy it. I never get bored of this.
I eat pretty much a ribeye or some ground beef or eggs every single day, and every day I cook it, I'm actually looking forward to eating that food.
Yeah.
Where, like you, when I used to eat the rubbish, like first of all, I never had that satiety feeling when I was finished. I could eat like non-stop. Like, and that's what they do. That it's these foods are designed for you to eat more.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's what an addiction is when you know that you're doing something, but you can't stop. You just have to keep going. So, for example, if you're going out for a meal with a friend or a boyfriend or girlfriend, and you know you're full, but then all of a sudden the waiter comes out with the dessert menu. You look at the desserts.
Oh, I could squeeze one in.
I can squeeze one in, but you'd never do that if you were eating like the way we should be eating.
Yeah,
Because I guarantee you, if you eat a ribeye steak, those hunger signals are going to be gone.
yeah. It's not the hunger shit. It's the chemicals as well. The chemicals are designed so that the full feeling doesn't last and make you want more. So so you want more of that. Your brain thinks, oh, I want more of that, and that's why you always need something sweet afterwards. It's like I used to go to, I'd go to the shops on my lunch break, and I'd be looking, thinking, oh, I'll just get a chocolate bar. And you get there and it's one for 80p or three for £1.20. So like, well, I'm not just going to spend 80p. But by the time I got home, I'd have eaten all three of them, because they're designed so that you can just eat them. There's no fulfillment in them. And then, and I'd come home and I'd have my lunch and I'd have my tea and I'd probably snack on something else, because you're never full. You just
And you made a very, very good point there, and this is going to lead on to our. I know you are very passionate about this as well. When it comes to food noise, and when you're eating these foods, these are sending a signal to your brain, telling your body you actually want to do more. Now, when we look at what's going on in the world at the moment, so many people are struggling with obesity. So many. Yet we're being told by our healthcare system that this is a disease. You have a disease. You need to be put on Ozempic because this is the reason why you have food noise. This is
yeah.
the reason why this is how we're going to be able to stop those cravings. This is how we're going to be able to stop those signals going towards the brain. Please tell me your advice on this.
Well, I saw my friend at the weekend, as I told you, and she was telling me that her sister-in-law has been taking Ozempic for, I think, about 6 months. She's had kidney stones, she's had gallstones, she's been constantly sick. But because she's losing weight, she's prepared to put up with all that, and she's, it's just terrible. And the thing, she's paying for it. She's paying, I can't remember how much, it's a few £100s a month that she's paying to be sick. And I know someone else who's taking, I think it's called Manjaro, I'm not sure. And again, they've constantly been ill with it, but they think it's because everyone's so focused on the weight loss side of things. That's all they can see. But, as my friend, she's not in the same sort of mindset as me, but the first thing she said to me was, what will happen when she stops is she will just put all the weight back on, because her cravings will come straight back. You're just going to go back to eating exactly how you. It's the same as any diet. All the only difference with these jabs is it's quicker than doing a Weight Watchers or Slimming World or calorie. It just reduces your appetite, so you're hardly eating. So the weight drops, and side effects aside, that's not a healthy way to lose weight.
No.
Apparently, I don't know how big she was to start with, but apparently this girl has lost 9 stone in 6 months. I was only, it's taken me 3 months to lose a stone, and I wasn't particularly big by most standards to start with. So this way I'm losing at a sensible rate. So when it finally comes off, I'm not going to have excess skin hanging around, which all these people have. They've got all this excess skin, just skinny fat, as you call it.
Only that, but when you look at what happens, you're taking these injections. First of all, yes, you're losing the weight, but you're slowing your metabolism. You're losing muscle mass. So if you're losing muscle mass, that's going to have a direct impact on your hunger. So that's not good. Then, like you said, the cost is incredible. You're not going to feel good. Like from what I've heard, people are miserable taking these.
Yeah.
side effects. People are getting constipated on taking these drugs. Is all of this really worth for you to get in shape?
Yeah, I've seen lots of new. I mean, I don't really follow the mainstream media, but I've seen a lot of reposts on social media of articles like people. It's linked to death. It's linked to heart attacks. It's linked to all sorts. And at the end of the day, like most things pushed by the medical industry, it's just a money making scheme. The medical industry, big pharma, are not there to make you healthy. They are a business, and for them, it's about profits. At the end of the day, like any other business, there is no difference to them. And a healthy patient or a cured patient is a lost customer. They don't
Exactly.
they don't want you healthy. You know, they don't want you dead, because again, a dead patient is a lost customer. So for them, if they can keep you just sick enough that you need to keep taking their products, or if you stop taking that product, then what they'll do is they can prescribe you another medication, which you then pay for, gives them more profit. So you're constantly on medication after medication, increasing their profits. And it's just a vicious circle that you just never come off. And meanwhile, their profits are going into the millions, and nobody's looking at what the cause is. It's all about what can we do? What? Let's stick in a plaster on it, basically. Let me give you this tablet. This will like numb the symptoms for a while. It won't cure it, but it'll just numb your symptoms. No one ever says, right, what's caused it? What can we do to actually solve the problem? It's just, let's stick a plaster on it. And I had this conversation with my own doctor a few years ago, about my knee, when he wanted to prescribe me painkillers. And I said, well, I don't want painkillers. I want to resolve it. And I said, just sticking a plaster on. And he was like, well, it'll help with the pain levels. Like, I want a solution. I want to get better. I don't just want to take painkillers. That's not going to help me, because then what happens? You get addicted to painkillers, or they cause all kinds of upset stomachs, and don't help your insides. And you have to then prescribe. Then because I'm on these painkillers, then they prescribe me something for my stomach. And then because I'm fed up and I'm on painkillers, then I'm depressed, and then I'm on antidepressants. And before you know it, I'm on like 5, 6 different medications, all because I've got some knee pain.
Yes, I like the way you said sickness is a business, because like when we look back a couple of years ago, when we all went through the pandemic, and we were all struggling mentally, we weren't allowed outside the door. We were all told that we need to go and we can eat junk food, we can drink alcohol. The gyms were all closed. And you're looking around and you're like, I remember back then looking around, I'm like, how in the name of God is this actually going to help people?
You can go to McDonald's, you can't
Yeah.
see your parents.
And you know what they did? You know what? Like you mentioned, the reason why they did that is because they wanted more people to be sick eventually, so they could actually go and see the fucking doctor.
Yeah, absolutely.
They could never say, right, okay, listen, maybe if we close the McDonald's, close the processed foods, close the alcohol shops, open the gyms, get people out there, nutritionists, dietitians, people that are talking properly about proper nutrition, and getting people to look after their lifestyle, eat properly, look at the diet, cut out all the sugars, cut out the processed crap. We may have been able to save a lot of people back then.
Absolutely. I mean, from my perspective, I've done a lot of research. I went down this rabbit hole like 4 years ago. Prior to that, I was a normie, sort of going about my own business like anyone else. I got no interest in the news or politics, but then COVID hit, and at first I was doubtful. I didn't see any evidence of it. Nobody around me was getting sick, and nor was anyone else they knew. And for a little while, I was a bit unsure. I thought, well, this is a bit strange, but maybe there must be something to it because the media's telling. And then there was just lots of strange things about it. And it was a friend on Facebook actually started posting things about the figures being all wrong, and started looking into it a bit deeper. And they were quoting things like, oh, it was all cases which was based on positive tests and died with COVID, not of. And it was, even if someone was killed in a car crash or fell off a ladder, they were testing them and reporting it as a COVID death. And it was just about keeping people in fear.
Yeah.
And then the vaccine, then the vaccines came out, which again was more money for the big pharma. I mean, oh, it'll only be for vulnerable and the elderly. There'll only be one vaccine. Next thing it's rolled out for everyone. It'll never be for children, rolled out to children. It'll just be the one. And there's a booster, and there's another booster. They're making absolutely millions, and people are lining up for them. And nobody was questioning what was in these vaccines, what the side effects were, why they were able to create it so quickly, because a normal vaccine takes 5 to 10 years.
Exactly. And 5 years later, we're doing the exact same thing now with these pens, these Ozempic pens.
And, finally now it's in the mainstream media. We're seeing all these articles about people who are dying from and have serious illnesses from these COVID vaccines, which were not vaccines. There's a lot more to it, which I won't go into too much detail, but they contain mRNA. The tests weren't tests. The inventor of the PCR test, for example, was a guy called Carnivore. And he said these cannot be used to test for an illness. If you run these over a certain number of cycles, I think it was 30, then you can basically test positive for everything. And the NHS were running them over 45 cycles. So that was why they were getting positives. And seeing people say, people in the industry saying that, they were told what to run them at. He said, don't trust Anthony Fauci, who was a big backer of the vaccines. But quite conveniently, this guy died back just before the pandemic. The lateral flow tests, it was just a cheap piece of plastic from China. They didn't tell you anything. You could get a positive result if you tested a grape, tomato juice, Coca-Cola. And again, one of the African presidents, I think it was Tanzania, he came out and said, look, this is all rubbish. He tested a goat, some oil and a pineapple and told these people not to follow the guidelines. And conveniently, he then died in unusual circumstances and was replaced by someone who was willing to follow the guidelines and get everyone to lock down. So again, anyone that tries to go against the narrative in the same way as the carnivore diet, they're shut down. If we're all wrong and we're all crazy, why can't we have an open discussion about that? And someone say, well, actually, you're wrong because A, B, C, and here's the evidence. But no one can actually do that. They just throw lots of accusations at you and say, no, you're going to die. You're going to have a heart attack. Your blood pressure is going to go through the roof. But then you look at all these people who've been doing carnivore for 10 years plus and that, they've lost loads of weight. And you've only got to look at like the famous ones, Anthony Chafee and Sean Baker, that, they're both ex-athletes who put on a hell of a lot of weight, and you look at them now and they're strong, fit, healthy guys who look absolutely amazing.
Absolutely. I mean, the research is there and the data is there. I mean, when they come out with all these studies about this and that, like, you can give me as much as you want. My study is what I see in front of me right now. Like, Susan has been doing this for 3 months. She's changed her life. That's all the data. That's all the research that I need. But I think when they come out with these studies, especially on red meat, I've said this many, many times on my videos, that when they came out with the studies, they never spoke about what people had extra with these foods. So, like, when people talk about processed food, for example, like hot dogs, they focus too much on the meat. Like a bun burger, like say in McDonald's, they're focusing too much on the red meat. They're not focusing.
Bad for you, but no, that there's a bun with and all lots of sauces.
Yeah, the sauces, the bun.
In that bun.
I mean, the chips that you get in McDonald's are not even chips. It's just grease.
Yeah, 20 years ago, they were made with beef tallow. So again, that goes back to food having been changed. That's one of the things. Everyone says, well, we used to eat McDonald's fries. They used to be cooked with beef tallow. Now, all kinds of seed oils, which are exceptionally dangerous.
I was only looking at that the other day because I was looking at the difference between the chips in McDonald's, say, 20, 30 years ago, and the difference now. And there's actually, like you mentioned at the very, very beginning, they put actually an extra 12 ingredients into these foods.
Yeah, and the ingredients are, like, for example, I know from experience when I go to McDonald's, they put stuff in it's all full of chemicals to make you more hungry. Like, I could go to McDonald's, I don't have a massive appetite, but I could happily eat like a large McDonald's meal, like a Big Mac and large fries and a massive Diet Coke, and 5 minutes later, be hungry.
Yeah.
If you have a meal of that size with proper quality ingredients, there is no way that you would be hungry 5 minutes later.
And
What's in this food that makes you, that doesn't satisfy you? It's like you've just eaten fresh air. You might as well have not eaten.
And I think this is important because we need to understand this very, very quickly. There's a big difference between calories and hormones. Big, big difference. So when we look at the trend now, everybody's on a low calorie diet. Everybody's just focusing on calories. It doesn't make a difference what the calorie looks like. It's just a calorie. So if you're eating, like, say, 500 calories of chocolate, it's the exact same as eating 500 calories of steak. It's not. Both are going to have a different reaction on the body.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned, if you eat 500 calories of chocolate, the chances are that hunger signal is not going to be switched off. Whereas if you eat steak, you're going to be fuller a lot longer. But here's the problem. A lot of people, when they go on these trends, they want to try the carnivore diet, they want to try keto. What they do is they end up going too high protein. Now, here's the problem. If you go high protein, first of all, it's not a good source of energy. You can get energy from protein, but relying on energy from high protein is not good. So that's the reason why we have to make sure we're getting fat in our diet. Now, people will say that, oh, but we need carbohydrates for energy. Energy is what the body needs. Your body needs glucose. You don't need to get that in carbohydrates. Your body can produce glucose through gluconeogenesis, and we can also get this through an animal-based diet. So when you try these diets, you need to remember a high-protein diet is not going to work long-term because you're going to feel miserable. Too much protein in the diet is going to convert to sugar. And like I said, it's not a good energy source. When it comes to your hormones are going to tell you, we have hormones like cortisol, leptin, ghrelin, insulin. Insulin is the biggest one. At the moment, chronic insulin is a big, big problem. I only put a video up today of a doctor telling the world that diabetes is not caused by sugar, which absolutely infuriated me, really infuriated me. When we look at diabetes is diagnosed when our blood sugars are chronically elevated. Now, if your blood sugar has been chronically elevated, what macronutrient is going to have the biggest impact? It's not going to be fat, because that's going to keep your inflammation down. It's going to keep insulin down, which is what we want. You might get a small spike with protein, but it's not going to be anywhere near if you eat a lot of carbohydrates. Now, if you eat a lot of carbohydrates, it doesn't make a difference what carbohydrates you're eating, whether it's complex, processed, simple carbohydrates, fruits, anything like that. It's all sugar. It's all going to have an impact on insulin.
Right, all carbohydrates break down to sugar. Right?
So now, if your insulin levels are high, really, really high, what's going to happen is you're blocking the body from burning fat. You're not going to be able to burn fat. It's impossible. You might lose weight, so you might actually step on the scales and you'd be like, oh, I'm losing weight. I look amazing. I might be actually losing a bit of water, but you're also losing muscle mass, which is not good. Whereas if we flip that, bring our insulin levels down and bring our leptin levels high and eat the food that's going to keep leptin high, you're going to be fuller on a regular basis. Now, when you're full, you're going to be able to drop body fat so much easier. So much easier. You're not going to have those temptations like what we've been mentioning, cravings, food noise, all of that. You're going to be able to control this easily by just eating the food that's going to keep your leptin levels high and keeping your insulin levels low.
Yeah, like I said, I have absolutely no cravings. It never occurs to me that it just doesn't. I don't even think to myself, oh, I want a snack. It's just something that doesn't even occur to me now. Whereas, I'd say, most days I'd always be craving something or rooting to, I used to keep like a block of dark chocolate in the cupboard, just so if I was when I was doing whatever diet I was doing, if I had cravings, I could just have like a couple of squares of that just to satisfy my cravings, just to stop me from binge eating on something, like 3 chocolate bars, for example. But I don't crave it at all. I don't want that food. My body knows what it, now my body's adapted and it knows what it wants, and it doesn't agree with me, any of that food.
Do you feel you'll ever go back?
No, I honestly can't. I can't see why I would want to go back, because the health benefits, not just the weight loss. Obviously, even when I get to my goal weight, there's no reason to stop, really, because I having looked into it so much and done so much research, because I've done the research prior to starting the carnivore, which was 4 months ago now, and obviously I've done lots of research since then. I'm always learning and listening, watching videos and reading articles, reading books, etc. And I just don't want to put those kind of chemicals in my body. I look at you look at the list of ingredients on stuff. I might go back to having like a full fat yogurt that just has got yogurt in it. Mm-hmm. Might have a bit of cheese now and then. I don't currently, because I'm still on my weight loss. But again, it's checking the ingredients. I was in the farm shop the other week and I was looking at some of the cheeses and I was thinking about buying one. And I looked. It was I think it was Wensleydale with apricots, and it had like loads of extra ingredients in it. It wasn't just cheese. I don't want to put that in my body. If it's just the natural stuff, then fine. But no, I wouldn't go back to eating chocolate or pizzas or anything, because I just think now about the greasy sort of aftertaste, and it was just all the oils and things in them.
And you feel you got in shape a lot easier this way.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I can't physically go. I can't go for a walk. I've got like an Apple Watch which I've had for years, and most days, if I do 1,000 steps, that's a lot. That's if I've had.
And that's a good point, Susan, because at the very, very beginning, when we worked together, you couldn't do anything. Like, you couldn't go to the gym, you couldn't go for a walk. So it was like, okay, a lot of people listening to this will probably hear that and say, well, I'm a lost hope. I'm in a wheelchair, or I'm on a hospital bed. Like, how am I gonna end up losing weight? I think within 6 weeks we did nothing in the gym. We just did a little bit of home workouts.
I'd love to be able to go out for a walk, but at the moment it's not an option for me. But because having done this for 6 or however 7 weeks, I thought, right, I'm going to actually go to the gym and just give it a go and see if I can get in there. As long as I can park really close to the door and get in there, then I can do it. And so,
I'm just saying, like for the first 6 weeks, even though we were restricted, we still got amazing results. I mean, you were still losing weight on a week.
Yeah, the results have come through. I wouldn't say the results have just come because I've gone back to the gym. And again, when I go to the gym, all I'm doing, because I can't do cardio, I couldn't go on a treadmill or a cross trainer, for example, even if I wanted to, that's just too painful for me. So I'm literally just doing arm weights and a few other machines that I have to just pick and choose what I can do according to my pain levels. So you absolutely don't need to be going to a gym and doing cardio. And the majority, the main, I wouldn't say I've seen massive differences since going to gym. It's only been a few weeks since I've been going back there, but I'm only doing a limited amount of work. So absolutely, you do not need to be doing exercise. I work from home, so I've only got a small house. I'm not walking from the west wing to the east wing or anything like that. So if I do, most days my average steps is like 1,500 steps or something. I'm just not getting the exercise, and I've still managed to lose the weight quite easily. So you do not need to be going out. If you can go for a walk, brilliant, do it, go for one. That will obviously help. It will help your mental health as well immensely to get out and do some exercise. But if you can't, you don't need to.
And we're not finished yet, Susan. We still have loads more to do. So much more to get through, and keep
Yeah,
on.
yeah.
Keep on.
I'm still got a little bit of like a belly that I want to get rid of. You know, I'm not at my goal just yet, but my ultimate goal is, you know, I'm more determined than ever to get a really good body. I don't, you know, for me personally now, I don't just want to be thin. I want to get really toned. I want to look really good. Like, so it's changed my mindset. Whereas previously my goal was always just to be thin. Now my mindset's changed, and I want to build muscle, and I want to actually, you know, have a little bit of definition on me. And take time, but you know, you know, it's completely changed my way of thinking. See that that's achievable through doing this diet and listening to what you said about, you know, building muscle, because you've explained to me as well that, you know, doing cardio just, you know, gives you skinny fat, whereas you actually need to build muscle. So doing weights is much better.
Exactly. So before we finish up, any final thoughts?
Anyone thinking of doing carnivore, just go for it. If you're not sure, I'd highly recommend just, you know, easing into it. You know, do a ketogenic diet to start with. You know, ease into it. Cut out the processed food. The best thing you do is cut out anything that's got seed oils in, anything that says low fat on it. Don't touch with the barge bowl. Just eat, you know, and just eat things like butter. You know, not butter that's got loads of ingredients. And just check the ingredients as well. Like, for example, if you're buying cream, you can buy Tesco's own cream for about 80p, which has got 2 ingredients in. There's another cream by another brand, I think it's called Elmley or something. It's actually more expensive, and you read the ingredients, and there's like 10 ingredients in there, and it's full of oils. So, you know, it's not good for you. It's not healthy. Just think to yourself, could I make these ingredients in my kitchen? If not, if that ingredient was on your plate on its own, would you eat it? Not, don't buy anything with it in. Start with ketogenic, just cut out the processed foods, and then, you know, give carnivore a try. You know, I was never a big red meat eater, but, you know, I've adapted, and it wasn't that I didn't like it, I just never ate it. It was something that never appealed, but just absolutely 100%. I tell everybody how amazing it is. The mental health benefits are brilliant.
Amazing, Susan. Absolutely amazing. Well, I want to thank you for coming on and sharing your story. I think a lot of people will resonate, and I'm hoping it reaches out and it helps a lot of people. And we'll definitely have to keep this going and do another one in 3 months' time and show people how well you've done. And
Yeah.
hopefully we'll get you running someday again.
Yeah, that is the goal. You know, I always wanted to run a marathon. I never got to it because I was always injured. You know, it's still my goal. But, you know, and I am still looking at alternative treatments. People do say to me that the carnivore diet will heal osteoarthritis. I have seen testimonies from people who have things like rheumatoid arthritis and other arthritis, which are inflammatory conditions, and they've completely healed them. Unfortunately, because mine's wear and tear of the joint, I'm trying to basically rebuild the joint, so it's not that straightforward. It is getting better, and I really hope that, you know, I'd love to be able to go for a walk, but, you know, if I can't for another 5-6 months or whatever, then at least I'm doing the absolute best I can. I'm putting the right food into my body. I know that I'm not putting crap into it. I'm fueling myself so that once I am better, I'm in the absolute best position to get out there and do what I can.
It's only a matter of time.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm positive. I'm certain I will do. It's just a matter of, I've got to be patient, the same as the weight loss. Unfortunately, you know, my knee didn't wear away overnight. It took years to get to this point. It's been gradually getting worse for years. So the same as weight loss, it's not going to just repair itself overnight. These things take time.
Yeah, 100%. Well, as I said, Susan, it's been an absolute pleasure, and we'll definitely have to do this now in a few months' time.
Yeah, absolutely right. Thanks for having me on, Mark. Take care.
Speak soon, Susan. Bye-bye.
Bye.